Hello and welcome back to the Shakey Sonnet Show. I am Tootight Lautrec, the drag laureate of the Sonnetarium, and we are here once again in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainder section of an unnamed local library which may or may not have some lions couchant sitting pretty on the front steps. At least they look pretty. Who knows what's in their stony, cold, clotted hearts, or what sorts of slander they've been slinging around about the other lions. Isn't that right, Lenore? My new friend. She only says one word, but it's okay. Today, our topic is slander, as we look at sonnets 69 and 70. And tongues are a wagon, which can be a good thing when you're talking about 69, but maybe not. I have to admit, I admitted last time, I found the last two sonnets somewhat difficult to read, and I found 69 and 70 to be difficult as well before I consulted with my scholars. And even then, it seems the scholars find a bit of trouble with these two as well. Partially, apparently, it might be because of the typesetters who may have spent a little too much time guzzling grog at the pub before going to work and typesetting the sonnets 69 and 70. There are discrepancies that most editors just consider flat-out errors, particularly, for example, in lines 3, 5, and 14 of 69 and elsewhere. And it doesn't make the twisted sense or syntax any easier to untangle. But we'll try. Let's get to it. I am going to, 69 and 70 are again another pair of sonnets, and I am going to read them back to back, just like I did last week with 67 and 68, partially to get through them, but also because they actually do belong together. 69 states a claim, and 70 is an answer, in a way, to sonnet 69. So, sonnets 69 and 70. Those parts of thee that the world's eye doth view want nothing that the thought of hearts can mend. All tongues, the voice of souls, give thee that due, uttering bare truth, even so as foes commend. Thy outward thus with outward praise is crowned. But those same tongues that give thee so thine own, in other accents do this praise confound, by seeing farther than the eye hath shown. They look into the beauty of thy mind, and that in guess they measure by thy deeds. Then, churls, their thoughts, although their eyes were kind, to thy flower add the rank smell of weeds. But why thy odor matcheth not thy show? The soil is this, that thou dost common grow. And then 70 answers that. That thou art blamed shall not be thy defect, for slander's mark was ever yet the fair. The ornament of beauty is suspect, a crow that flies in heaven's sweetest air. So thou be good, slander doth but approve thy worth the greater, being wooed of time. For canker vice the sweetest buds doth love, and thou present'st a pure unstained prime. Thou hast passed by the ambush of young days, either not assailed, or victor being charged. Yet this thy praise cannot be so thy praise to tie up envy evermore enlarged. If some suspect of ill masked not thy show, then thou alone kingdoms of hearts shouldst owe. So, let's get into it. I may just do a paraphrase of the lines as I go, because sometimes it gets a little tangled. First of all, on line 3, the last word of line 3 is do, but apparently it was printed as end, E-N-D, in the quarto. And there are many theories about what the typesetters might have been going for and what they went for, and maybe they saw mend and thought it should rhyme with end, but most editors actually all editors that I've encountered have changed the word "and" in the 1609 quarto version to the word "do," because "do" rhymes with "view," and it simply makes sense. So lines 1 and 2, those parts of thee that the world's eye doth view want nothing that the thought of hearts can mend. You're perfect. There's nothing to fix on you. Want being lack. So what the world sees lacks nothing that the thoughts of hearts can mend. Like, you've got everything so far, nobody can think any better of you or the way that you look, at least. Lines 3 and 4, all tongues, the voice of souls, give thee that due, the fact that you're so beautiful. Uttering bare truth, even so as foes commend. Even so as foes commend is saying everyone, even your enemies, say so. Even your foes commend your beauty, and they all speak the same thing about how beautiful you are. The second quatrain, thy outward thus with outward praise is crowned. You're beautiful, and you act beautifully, apparently, or you seem to be beautiful as well. But those same tongues that give thee so thine own, in other accents do this praise confound by seeing farther than the eye hath shown. So even your enemies say that you're beautiful. Line 5 also starts with thy, but in the quarto, in the 1609 quarto, it has there. It's just a mistake. Apparently, it's happened a lot of other times. And if you notice, the movement goes from eyes to hearts to tongues to people, because tongues don't really see. Tongues actually become the people who have those tongues and what they're saying about you, and they can see into your inner life. Other accents simply means language different from the tone and meaning of what they've said before in front of your face. What they're saying behind your back is something else. So as far as your looks are concerned, everyone gives you your due. Lines 7 and 8, but in other accents do this praise confound. They give you your due, but some other people speak with forked tongues. They praise your beauty, but your inner beauty, they got some things to say. The third quatrain, they look into the beauty of thy mind, or do they? They look into the beauty of thy mind, and that in guess they measure by thy deeds. So they're trying to sum you up based on what you actually do. Then, comma, churls, comma, neither of those commas are in the 1609 quarto. Then, churls, their thoughts, although their eyes were kind, to thy fair flower add the rank smell of weeds. So they're talking shit about you. And the churls either are the people who are talking smack, or their thoughts that are thinking bad thoughts about you. They're casting suspicion on your lovely self for reasons that I don't know why they would do that. And then the couplet, but why thy odor matches not thy show, the soil is this, that thou dost common grow. So again, another typesetting error. Soil in the 1609 quarto is spelled S-O-Y-L, no, sorry, spelled S-O-L-Y-E. So it doesn't seem to make any sense. It doesn't sound like soil because the L and the Y are transposed. And most people believe that this is soil, which would be earth or a stain or two stain, or possibly it could be solution. S-O-L-Y-E could have been solve, or an abbreviation of a soil, which meant solution. But the churls their thoughts, although their eyes were kind, to thy fair flower add the rank smell of weeds. Like, you're beautiful, but your thoughts, I don't know. Phew. Is that your breath, or is that your reputation? Who knows? things are not adding up. But the solution is this. Thou dost common grow, which could mean, common could be a public field, sometimes gone wild. Common could be someone of low repute, or common could mean just like everybody else. The sense is that the groundwork or solution to this idea that you stink, people are talking stinky stuff about you, even though your reputation should be spotless, it's just the solution is this: you're out and about with too much company that's beneath you, and maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should be protecting yourself a little bit more. So Sonnet 70 is the answer to the churls of Sonnet 69, whether those churls be the thoughts in people's heads or whether it be the people who are the nattering nabobs of negativity in Sonnet 69 who are talking all this stinky stuff about you. Sonnet 70 is the answer. That thou art blamed shall not be thy defect, for slander's mark was ever yet the fair. The ornament of beauty is suspect. A crow, hello, that flies in heaven's sweetest air. Apparently crows were thought to be, a black mark on the sky, but I think they're quite beautiful. So possibly the black mark in the sky shows up the beauty of the sky even more. So a black mark on your reputation shows up your actual reputation, which is spotless and true, right? That's what I'm hoping. It shows up the beauty of your pure reputation, and it's not your fault that people are talking about you, trying to smear your name, because that happens all the time with pretty spotless people, doesn't it? Is the logic. So thou be good. So thou be good and wait for the siren to pass.
Yes, thank you.
So thou be good, and we can't wait all day, so we'll just continue while the sirens are blaring off into the distance. So thou be good, slander doth but approve thy worth the greater, being wooed of time. Now, this is a particularly torturous quatrain here. Line 6, the thy, in the 1609 quarto was there, and apparently this mistake occurs 13 more times throughout the sonnet sequence. And being wooed of time, I didn't know what that meant, and I looked up the experts, and apparently there are about a dozen theories about what that could possibly mean. Maybe because you're young, being wooed of time, the time is of your youth is causing you to do things that maybe people talk about. Maybe you're tempted by the corrupt times we live in. Maybe slander is the temptation of the time in which we live. Maybe being mortal, the flesh is weak, and sometimes we do things that maybe people talk about. Or the passage of time will vindicate you if indeed you are good and are slandered with no basis for it. Time will pass and it will show that you are upright and pure the way that I suspect that you always are. I take the meaning to be something like, so thou be good. As long as you're good, pure young you, as you walk around in these scandalous times with these scandalous friends of yours, you'll look even more pure because everyone knows, again, people only talk smack about good people. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? It seems to be saying. We get to quatrain 3. And thou, for canker vice the sweetest buds doth love, and thou presents a pure unstained prime. Thou hast passed by the ambush of young days, either not assailed or victor being charged. You've made it through thus far, mostly, unless we look back at some of the other sonnets, but mostly you've made it through thus far with a pure reputation. Without either being slandered, or if you have been slandered, you've met it with you've been the victor, being charged with slander, you've been the victor over it by proving that it didn't actually happen. But be careful. Yet this thy praise cannot be so thy praise, to tie up envy evermore enlarged. Envy evermore enlarged. Envy is like a cancer in these times, so you have to be careful of your reputation. And the sonnet's couplet, if some suspect of ill masked not thy show, then thou alone kingdoms of hearts should owe. The logic of which is saying, if people didn't talk about you, the whole world, entire kingdoms would fall in love with you because you'd be so pure and beautiful and wonderful. And we wouldn't want that, would we? How's that for logic? It's an interesting set of sonnets in that one answers the other, but the logic is a bit twisted and the language is a bit twisted, and we'll take it for what it's worth. Is there a female or a male evident anywhere? No. Male or female, not evident anywhere. Either in the narrator or in the beloved. For dramatic possibilities, I actually just read Othello because Roz at Scaly Dandling About the Books and Tilly from Tilly's Shelf are going to be reading it did read it for September. Now we're in, I guess, October or November, but so it's on my mind, and perhaps this set of sonnets could be Bianca about Cassio, maybe, or perhaps Iago about Desdemona, whispered slyly into Othello's ear to try to get the opposite effect, to try to do a Psych 101 reverse psychology on him. That's a possibility for these two sonnets. Now, narratively, methinks the sonnets doth protest too much. If I were to place this in a storyline from 1 to 154, and I will, I'd say that the young beloved has been stepping out on the town, frolicking with his or her friends in a manner not quite becoming of a gentle person, and the report has gotten back to the poor lonely lover off somewhere all alone. And these particular sonnets could be missives back to the beloved saying, hi, how are things going? I know you're behaving yourself because you're so good and I really, really, really trust you. But I don't know. People might be saying stuff that's not particularly flattering to you. It's your friends. They're scum. But you're not. So be careful and stay as good and pure as I know you are. Right? I know you are. So stay that way. Sonnet 69 and 70. Crows and flowers and slander. Oh my. Tongues are wagging. Things are happening. We'll see what happens in the sonnets coming up, but if you would like to wag your tongues or wag your fingers and tell me what you think of these sonnets, please do so in the comment section. Meanwhile, keep your eyes and hearts and minds open to the wonders that are in the world all around you, all the time surrounding us. Pay attention. I am Tootight Lautrec and Lenore. Mwah.